We are of a folklore heritage. We were conceived in the womb of beautiful words, birthed into a captivating world that we've spent eternity trying to name, tell, retell, and paint. Wrapped and cradled in stories, intsomi namabali. Our words create worlds. They transport, they mirror, they convict, they give lashings and hugs. They create and can never be undone. To hide between the pages of a book is to find pieces of yourself before you even were. Welcome to Turning Pages, the podcast that celebrates African literature from the continent and the diaspora. I'm your host, Vuvu Vena. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Turning Pages with Vuvu Vena. How have you guys been? It's really been quite a hectic few weeks, if we are being honest. I think that the COVID-19 saga has really gotten everybody in a very tense situation. Just globally, everybody's just not okay, and I think everybody's anxiety must have spiked when we went into lockdown, which I do think is a good decision, but I'm just wondering how everybody is coping. I, for one, am not on complete lockdown in the sense that I am still working, but luckily, and I'm grateful, I am able to work from home, but it's a full 9 to 5 for me during this time. However, I do realize that some people have a full lockdown, and some people, whether or not they wanted to stay at home or work from home or whatever the case may be, can't work from home because the kind of job that they do requires them to be at work. So I'm just wondering how you guys are coping through it all. And I know that everybody has been anxious because when I look at my Twitter feed, my Instagram feed, everybody is just feeling such great angst, and I'm really not an exception actually, because I've been at the peak of my anxiety, and I'm just wondering how the rest of you are coping. I do believe though that these are the times where we can't afford to lose hope, that it will be the one thing that sets us apart and helps us to survive. So I am constantly praying that the one thing that we continue to believe is that we will get through this and that we will live again on the other side. And 21 days seems long, but to think of it, we are already almost on the tail end of week 1. We've got 16 days left, and that's saying something. It's almost over. Anyway, that's kind of the point of this week's episode. The one thing that assists me when I'm feeling a lot of anxiety is reading. So this is the point of this week's episode. In any case, I am coming to you to suggest 5 South African authors that you should be reading during lockdown, or if not during lockdown, because bookstores are closed in South Africa and you can't even order off Take a Lot if it's not essential, then I'd suggest that you pick up this author sometime during the year when all of this is over. If they have ebooks, this would be a great time to start discovering these authors. So I haven't listed them in any particular order, but I've tried to put a mix of authors, and I can only ever recommend authors that I have read. So just because an author is not on this list does not mean that they are not worth recommending. It's probably because I haven't picked up anything from them as yet. I've got a lot of South African authors that are in my radar, especially since Turning Pages started, so I haven't gotten around to all of them, and I wouldn't want to recommend authors to you, like I'm saying, that I have not engaged with. So these are 5 authors that I've engaged with that I simply love, that are local. If you have any books from them and you've been hesitating to pick them up, I think this is the opportune time, especially if you do have that extra time in your hands. I am finding that because I'm working from home, I'm reading a whole lot more. Because I was cut out commuting and the school run, I'm finding that I have a little bit more extra time, and it has resulted in a lot more reading on my part. So I'm absolutely happy about that, and it's literally helping with my anxiety, like I'm saying. So in the morning, you'll find that first thing I do during the time that I would be commuting to work is reading. Straight after work, the first thing that I do, because even then I can still feel during the day like I have bursts of anxiety. So the first thing that I do after I finish work, before chilling with the kids, is reading, and I'm finding that it's really working out for me. And on weekends, I binge on books. So it is just a weird season, and I've never found myself needing to read as much as I have needed to read during this past 2 weeks, because even though we are on week 1 of lockdown, I've been social distancing and working from home since the 16th of the month, so since mid-month. So in the past 2 weeks, I have read a lot, and I'm grateful for that because I've got a target for this year. My Goodreads target is to read 30 books this year, so I'm not complaining. However, I'm saying this can be therapy for you too if you want, and you can find ways to squeeze it in, pick up and dust off those books that you've been meaning to read, and make this the opportunity that it might be, instead of wallowing on what you have no control over. So this is how I'm even saying it to myself, that there are things that I have no control over. However, the things that I do have control over are which book I pick up next, and I do that over and over and over again, and it does help calm my anxiety. Let me delve into the 5 authors that I have mentioned. So first up on the list is xoxo. We all know him. I'm sure that those of you who haven't read him have at least heard about him. He's actually great on Twitter as well, so he's got a Twitter handle. I'm sure if you just search xoxo, he will show up. And his 2 books that I have read are Ways of Dying as well as A Heart of Redness. Ways of Dying, I believe, was his debut novel, and it was phenomenal. And I would suggest him to anybody who is looking for a taste of what South African literature is, because I do believe a lot of the recent authors in South Africa have in one or other way been inspired by him. He's absolutely great. So if you don't have a copy of his, just search online if there are any ebooks that you can buy from him. But I do believe that he's got tens upon tens of books out, and he would be a great one to start with. The second author that I am referring to, you guys, is none other than Nosizo Cynthia Jailer. She's got 2 books. Her first one is Happiness is a 4-letter word, and I'm sure you know the title because it got turned into a movie in 2016. And the second one is called The Ones with Purpose. Both books were a hit. She is exceptionally talented. You will not regret picking up any of these 2 books. And the second one was, if I'm not mistaken, was recently published. Either it was published in 2018, if not 2017. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So she is phenomenal. And these 2 books are nothing like each other. So you might want to decide which one you want to choose first. So if you want to chill, have like an easy but also introspective girls' night without your girls, you want to pick up Happiness is a 4-letter word. If you want to delve into how our society treats illness, death, and some of the other ailments around societies and communities, you might want to pick up The Ones with Purpose. I will be reviewing both Nosizo's books in April on this platform, so do stay tuned. The third author that I want to refer to you guys is Ndikeng Mohlele. I'm always so nervous when I say his name because I always feel like somehow, in some weird way, it is a tongue twister for me. But it's Ndikeng Mohlele. Ndikeng Mohlele has written quite a number of books. The one that I've had a privilege of reading is Pleasure. I do own a book of his called it's just called Michael K. And Pleasure, I remember the reason why this author sticks out to me is that when I started it was a mind battle. It was different to anything that I've ever read, and it really took me a while to get into. However, I remember looking at the words on the page and thinking, what a great talent. And I think the year that I read it, which was 2018, it was the first book, South African book that I read that year, and I hadn't read a South African book in a long time. So it blew me away thinking that this was a South African author who had constructed such flawless sentences, imagery. His writing from that specific book is quite vivid, and that book travels between 2 time periods, but he does it so exceptionally well. By the time I was a quarter into the book, I was really roped in, and I kept reading because this book was quite interesting, but I didn't think that I would actually like it. By the time I finished that book, I absolutely loved it. So at some point this year, I'm planning to pick up Michael K. And even now that I have a greater appreciation of pleasure, I might pick it up again when I pick up Michael K. And I'm not opposed to rereading. So if any of these authors are on your shelf and you've read them before, years ago, even last year, if you will, don't hesitate to pick them up, which is what I did with the next author. The next author that I'm suggesting to you guys is Mohale Moshego. This year, I reread her short stories called Intruders, her collection of short stories, which is the second novel. She's also got 2 books out. The first one is called The Yearning, and the second one is called Intruders. The Yearning is a novel, and Intruders is a collection of short stories. I read Intruders first, and I read it in 2018. At the end of last year, which was in 2019, I reread it leading up to this year. So I've just recently finished a reread of that. And Mohale is an interesting mind. By the way, that's not even her actual name, but we will give her what she has called herself. So her author pseudonym is Mohale Moshego. She is an interesting mind, and I think she pours so much of herself in her books that you can't separate her from her persona online. So she's also quite great on Twitter and on Instagram. I think she goes by the name of Black Porcelain without the A. She's really quite great online, and you get a sense of who she is. And with both books, though, what I know for sure will grab you when you open them are the author's notes. She is exceptional in letting her reader know that this one is for them. Every single book that you pick up is for you. The short story collection I love so much because even though she doesn't want to say it is Afrofuturism, it focuses on a lot of Afrofuturism, urban legends, and just a critique on a lot of things that are very South African yet very Afrofuturistic. It is very, very, very interesting. If you have picked up that book, or if you are planning to pick up that book, the one story that I absolutely love from that collection is called Untitled. It is beautiful. It is absolutely a beautiful collection, and you might find that if you are somebody who's getting into reading, short stories are probably going to be an easier read because you'll feel like you are accomplishing more by starting and finishing a lot of stories one after the other. So I would suggest, if you've got this copy or access to it, that you start with this book as well. As much as I've said that Zakes is an easy read, I think if you are trying to build the habit and the muscle of reading and finishing something, that these short stories would be a good idea. So the final author that I'm suggesting is also a multi-award winning author, South African, absolutely exceptionally talented. People have questioned some of the stuff that he explores in his books, but I will say that some of the things that I have picked up in the 2 books of his that I have read are things that people needed to have conversations about. In my own personal opinion, I think that he is an author that is worth picking up. His name is J.M. Katia. He is the author of Disgraced and Boyhood. Those are the 2 books of his that I have read. I do own a 3rd book that I will say Ntikeng made me buy because his character in Michael K. is based off of J.M. Katia's book called The Life and Times of Michael K. So I want to read the book before I read, I want to read J.M. before I read Ntikeng, mainly because I want to see how his thought process went about in creating this specific book that is based upon another character in a different book. I've never heard anybody doing that. So if there's a name for that, you'll let me know. But those are the 5 authors that I would recommend for you guys. So just to recap, it's Zakes Mda, it's Nosizo Cynthia Jele, it is Ntikeng Mhlele, Mohale Moshego, and it is J.M. Katia. If you have access to any of these authors, and it doesn't have to be a reading in sequence of their books, just pick up any of their books. I swear to you, you will not be disappointed. And do let me know if you're planning to read any of them in the comment section down below. And until next time, thank you so very much for tuning in. Please stay safe, stay at home, and I'm sure through reading you will come to learn that every storm eventually passes. I'd love to hear your thoughts about today's episode, so why not search for me on social media? On Instagram, I'm VuvuVena_reads. On Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, I'm VuvuVenaReads. And you can also find me on my website, which is www.vuvuvenareads.com. And until next week, I really do love you guys. Bye now.